The day humans left the galaxy, and the Council's fear began part. The silence came first. One moment, the galaxy hummed with the usual noise of trade routes, military patrols, and colony chatter. The next, a strange quiet spread across every star system that had once hosted humans. It wasn't just the absence of voices, it was the absence of everything human. No ships in orbit, no signals from stations, no replies to routine hails. Just empty space where people had lived, worked, and laughed only hours before. On the central ring of the Galactic Conquered Council, deep inside the crystalline dome of Viridia Prime, alarms blared. Not the loud, clanging kind, but the soft, urgent chimes that meant something impossible had happened. Councillor Vrel of the Cathari stood so fast his segmented legs clicked against the polished floor. His compound eyes flickered with data streams scrolling too fast to read. "All human outposts," he said, voice sharp as broken glass. "Gone, everyone." Ambassador Nilo of the Marine sank lower in his water-filled chair, gills flaring slowly. "Gone how? Destroyed? Evacuated? No wreckage," replied a young analyst named Jorik, standing near the back of the chamber. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the tension. He held a data slate trembling in his hands. No energy spikes. No emergency beacons. It's like they just stepped out of reality. The council chamber fell still. Even the ambient hum of the dome's climate system seemed to pause. For over 200 years, humans had been part of the conquered, loud, unpredictable, and strangely creative. They built ships that bent physics in odd ways, sang songs that made alien children cry with joy, and argued ethics with a passion that baffled older species. They were never the strongest militarily, nor the most advanced technologically, but they had a knack for solving problems no one else could see. Now, without warning, they had vanished. Jorik, a scholar from the quiet moon of Luma, had spent years studying human culture. He knew their history, their jokes, even their nursery rhymes. That was why he'd been called to the emergency session, not as a decision-maker, but as a translator of human behavior. And right now, human behavior made no sense. "They left everything," Jorik said, stepping forward. "Food on tables." Games paused mid-round. Medical bots still running diagnostics in empty clinics. "It's not an evacuation, it's a disappearance," Councillor Vrel hissed. "A trick. They've gone into hiding, or built some new stealth tech. Humans always hide their true strength until it's too late." Nilo shook his head, water rippling around his neck. "If it's a trick, why leave their children's toys behind? Why leave their art? Their libraries? No species abandons its soul unless something greater calls." The debate raged for hours. Some members demanded immediate quarantine of all former human zones. Others pushed for full military sweeps. A few whispered fears of a new weapon, one that could erase a species from existence without a trace. While the council argued, Jorik slipped away to the data archives. He pulled up the last known transmissions from human worlds. Most were routine, cargo manifests, weather reports, school announcements. But then he found something odd. From the outer colony of Helios Reach, a final audio log. No video, just sound. He played it softly through his earpiece. At first it was static, then laughter. Not panicked, not forced. Real warm laughter. Children giggling. Adults chuckling. Someone humming a tune Jorik recognized, a human lullaby about stars and sleep. And beneath it all, a strange harmonic hum like 1,000 voices singing in perfect unison just at the edge of hearing. The sound made his skin prickle. When he replayed it, his earpiece glitched and emitted a high-pitched whine. He reported his findings, but the council dismissed it as emotional noise. "Laughter means nothing," Vrel snapped. It could be a decoy, but Jorik couldn't forget it. Laughter wasn't a weapon. It was a farewell. 2 days later, a distress ping echoed from the neutral zone near the old trade lane Theta 9. Not from a human ship, from a Cathari salvage vessel that had drifted too close to a derelict freighter. The freighter bore the faded insignia of the United Earth Shipping Guild. Its hull was cold. Power offline, but its docking clamps were open, as if waiting for someone to come aboard. The Concord sent a science team. Jorik volunteered. He was paired with Kale, a grizzled salvage pilot with a reputation for surviving the impossible. Kale had cybernetic eyes that glowed faint blue and a voice rough from breathing too many toxic atmospheres. "They say that ship's cursed. Kale muttered as their shuttle approached. My cousin flew near it last cycle. Came back babbling about music in the walls. They locked him in a medbay on Ceres Minor. Jorik didn't answer. He stared at the freighter named the Wanderer's Hope according to its registry. It looked ordinary. Rust on the hull, solar panels half-folded, but something about it felt wrong, like it existed slightly out of sync with the rest of space. Boarding was easy. The airlock opened with a sigh as if expecting them. Inside, the ship was spotless. No signs of struggle, no bodies. In the mess hall, a mug sat on the table. Steam long gone, but the ceramic still faintly warm. On the floor near the crew quarters, a small toy, a carved wooden bird with chipped paint, lay on its side. Kyle picked it up. This is old, handmade. Humans stopped making things like this centuries ago. Jorik scanned the ship's main terminal. It was dead, but the backup core held one file labeled Final Log. He activated it, the screen flickered. A human face appeared, tired, smiling, eyes bright with something between joy and sorrow. If you're seeing this, the man said, we're already gone. Don't look for us. Don't try to follow. We didn't run, we stepped through. Tell the stars we said thank you. Then softly, he began to sing the same lullaby Jorik had heard from Helios Reach. As the song played, Kale's cybernetic eyes flickered wildly. Shut it off, he growled, clutching his temples. That sound, it's not just sound. It's doing something to my implants. Jorik killed the playback. Silence returned, heavier than before. They searched the rest of the ship. Nothing else. No weapons, no logs, no clues. Just the toy bird, the warm mug, and the echo of a song that shouldn't exist. Back on Viridia Prime, the Council reviewed their report. Frel called it proof of human deception. Nilo called it a warning. Jorik said nothing. He kept the toy bird in his pocket, its wood smooth against his fingers. That night, alone in his quarters, Jorik replayed the lullaby one more time. Just the audio, no video. This time he listened past the melody. Beneath the notes, almost hidden, was a pattern. A rhythm that matched no known language, no mathematical sequence he recognized. But it felt familiar, like a memory he hadn't lived yet. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. But for the first time in his life, Jorik felt watched. Not by enemies. Not by gods, by something that had once been human. And whatever it was still out there, laughing softly in the dark. The day humans left the galaxy and the Council's fear began, Part 2, Jorik couldn't sleep. The wooden bird sat on his desk, its painted eyes staring at nothing. Every time he closed his own, he heard the lullaby. Not loud, just a whisper in the back of his mind like wind through empty halls. He knew it wasn't just a song. It was a key. But to what, he didn't know. 2 days after returning from the derelict freighter, he was summoned again, not to the main council chamber, but to a sealed observation bay in Sector Theta 9. The Concorde had towed the Wanderer's Hope into a quarantine bubble, surrounded by sensor drones and energy dampeners. No one was allowed near it except authorized personnel. Jorik wasn't authorized, but someone had signed his name on the clearance list. He arrived to find Kale waiting outside the airlock, arms crossed, face grim. They pulled me off salvage duty, the pilot said. Said I'm too close to the anomaly, whatever that means. You heard it too, Jorik said. The song, Kale nodded slowly. It's still in my head, like a ghost humming in my bones. Inside the bay, the freighter floated silently. The Concorde had installed a new terminal beside the ship's hull, linked directly to its black box. A young technician named Mira stood by it, her fingers flying over the controls. She was from the glass forests of Vela, with silver skin and eyes that changed color with her mood. Right now they were deep violet, nervous. I've been trying to decode the final transmission, she said without looking up. But it's not just audio. There's something layered underneath. Frequencies outside normal hearing. When I boost them, she tapped a command. The lullaby played again, but this time it was different. Sharper, deeper. The notes seemed to twist in the air. Kale staggered back, hand clamped over his ear. Shut it off! My implants, they're burning. Jorik felt it too. A pressure behind his eyes, a ringing that wasn't sound but sensation. Mira cut the feed. Sorry, she whispered. I didn't think it would affect you that badly. It's not meant for us, Jorik said quietly. It's meant for something else. They spent the next hours analyzing fragments. The black box held more than just the captain's message. Buried in corrupted files were ship logs, personal diaries, even children's drawings scanned into the system. One entry, dated the day before the Exodus, read, "We hear them now. Not with ears. With everything. They're waiting in the quiet." Mira frowned. "Who's they?" No one answered. Later, while Kale checked the freighter's engine room for hidden compartments, Jorik and Mira reviewed sensor data from the moment the ship was found. Something odd stood out. The hull temperature had been normal, except for one spot near the cargo bay. It read 37 degrees Celsius, human body temperature, but there was no life sign. No heat source, just warmth, lingering like a memory. As they puzzled over it, an alert flashed on Mira's screen. A priority message from the outer colony of Eos Prime, one of the largest human settlements now empty for over a week. The Concord had placed monitoring drones there. One had just reactivated after going dark. It was broadcasting, not a distress call. Not a data burst, just voice. Clear, calm, and in perfect human English. "They're watching you now." The words repeated every 30 seconds. No origin point. No modulation. Just that phrase echoing from the heart of the abandoned city. Jorik's blood ran cold. "Eos Prime has no power grid. No active comms. How is this possible?" Mira pulled up the drone's last visuals. The streets of Eos Prime were empty. Trees swayed in the wind. Lights flickered in windows, though no one was home. And in the central plaza, the colony's main archive building glowed faintly, its doors wide open. Back at the council, the news caused panic. Councillor Vrel demanded immediate military lockdown of Eos Prime. "This is psychological warfare," he declared. "Humans are testing us, probing our fear." Ambassador Nilo disagreed. "Fear doesn't broadcast in loops. This feels like a warning." Jorik tried to speak, but his clearance had been downgraded. He was now labeled emotionally compromised. They wouldn't listen. That night, Kyle found him in the observation bay, staring at the silent freighter. "I heard about Eos," he said. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Jorik nodded. "We have to go there. It's forbidden. They'll arrest us. They already think we're unstable. What's one more crime?" Kale grinned, the first real smile Jorik had seen from him. "I've got a ship, fast, quiet. Used it to run contraband during the Rim Wars, still works." They left before dawn. Mira joined them at the last minute, slipping aboard with a data satchel full of decryption tools. "If humans left a message," she said, "I want to read it before the council burns it." Their ship, the Rust Finch, jumped to Eos Prime in 3 silent leaps. As they approached, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. But the orbital sensors showed no power signatures. No movement. No signals except the looping voice. They landed in the main plaza. The air was fresh, scented with blooming night flowers. Birds sang in the trees. It felt like any quiet morning, except for the silence where people should be. The archive building stood ahead, its glass doors open. Inside, lights glowed softly. The temperature was perfect. On a desk near the entrance, a cup of tea sat steaming. "Impossible," Mira whispered. "No heat source. No one to make it." They moved deeper. Rooms were untouched. Books on shelves. Hologames paused mid-level. In a classroom, tiny chairs surrounded a table with half-finished drawings, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow sun. Then they found the terminal. It sat in the center of the main chamber, humming gently. As Jorik approached, it lit up. Words appeared on the screen. "Welcome, do not speak aloud." Below it, a countdown glowed in bold red numerals. 7 days, 04 hours, 22 minutes. And counting. Kale stepped back. "What is this?" Jorik typed carefully. "Who are you?" The screen flickered. Warden, last guardian of the threshold. Mira leaned in. "Threshold to what?" Before Jorik could ask, the lights dimmed. A low vibration filled the room. Not sound, but a feeling like the building itself was breathing. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, moving against the light source. Kale grabbed Jorik's arm. "We need to go, now." But Jorik typed one more question. "Why did they leave?" The screen went black. Then slowly new words formed. "They did not leave. They ascended. You are still sleeping." Suddenly the air grew thick. Jorik's ears popped. The floor tilted slightly, though the building hadn't moved. In the hallway behind them, A mirror reflected not their faces but three figures in old-style human uniforms standing perfectly still. When Jorik turned, no one was there. Mira's eyes turned deep red, pure fear. This place isn't empty. It's occupied. They ran. Out the doors, across the plaza, back to the Rust Finch. As they lifted off, Jorik looked down. In the archive window, a single light blinked once, like a wink. Back in orbit, they checked the countdown again. It now read 16 days, 23 hours. What happens when it hits 0? Mira asked, voice shaking. No one knew. But as they jumped away from EOS Prime, a final message crackled over their comms. Not from the planet, but from deep space. It was the same voice from the drone, calm and clear. They're watching you now. And this time it didn't loop. It just ended. In the cockpit, Kale stared at the stars. We're not being watched by ghosts, he said slowly. We're being watched by what ghosts became. Jorik held the wooden bird in his pocket, its surface now slightly warm, as if it had been held by someone moments ago. Far below, on the silent streets of EOS Prime, every light in the city flickered once, then went out. The day humans left the galaxy, and the Council's fear began part, the Rust Finch drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, far from any patrol routes. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee and fear. Jorik stared at the wooden bird in his palm. It was warmer now, not hot, but alive with a soft heat like a sleeping animal. Mira sat cross-legged on the floor, rewinding the archive's message over and over, her silver skin pale with worry. Kale paced near the cockpit, one hand resting on the ship's emergency pulse rifle. They knew we'd come, Jorik said at last. The warden wasn't surprised. It was waiting. For what? Mira asked. For someone to understand. Kale stopped pacing. Understand what? That humans turned into space ghosts who whisper warnings and leave warm tea. That doesn't help us. It helps if the warning is real, Jorik replied. The countdown isn't a bomb. It's a deadline. Something happens when it ends. Mira pulled up star charts on her slate. 16 days isn't much time. But it's enough to warn the conquered if they'd listen. They won't, Kale said flatly. Frel's already calling this a human trap. He thinks we've been brainwashed. Jorik knew he was right. The Council had branded them fugitives the moment they left Viridia Prime without clearance. Bounty hunters were already scanning nearby systems. They couldn't go back, but they couldn't stay hidden either. We need proof, Jorik said. Something the Council can't ignore. Mira's eyes brightened. The archive. It's still active. Maybe it holds more than just warnings. Maybe it holds answers, Kale groaned. You want to go back? After what we saw? We saw shadows and mirrors, Jorik said. Not weapons. Not monsters. The warden told us not to speak aloud. That means sound matters. Maybe words, human words, trigger something. Mira nodded slowly. In human myth, names have power. Songs open doors. Maybe their reality works differently. Kale rubbed his temples. Fine, but we go in quiet. No talking, no comms. And we leave the second things feel wrong. They return to EOS Prime under cover of solar flare interference. The planet looked the same, peaceful, empty, waiting. They landed in the same plaza. The archive doors stood open again as if expecting them. Inside, the air was still. The cup of tea was gone. In its place sat a small music box, unmarked, lid closed. Jorik didn't touch it. They moved deeper, stepping softly. The warden terminal glowed with the same red countdown. 14 days, 08 hours. Jorik typed. What must we do? The screen flickered. Learn. Listen. Do not fear the silence. Mira pointed to a side room labeled Historical Archives. Inside, shelves held physical books, real paper, real ink. Most species had abandoned such things centuries ago, but humans kept them, like relics of a gentler time. She pulled one at random. It was a collection of poems. On the first page, someone had written in pencil, "They hear us when we sing." Kale, meanwhile, found something stranger. In the maintenance corridor, the gravity shifted. One step felt normal. The next, his boot lifted slightly as if the floor had softened. He tested it again, same result. It's not broken, he whispered. It's choosing. Jorik joined him. He stepped where Kyle had. For a heartbeat, he felt weightless. Then normal again. Back at the terminal, Mira had uncovered logs from the days before the Exodus. Humans hadn't panicked. They'd held festivals, shared meals, recorded messages for loved ones across the stars. One entry read, "When we're not dying, we're tuning, like a radio finding the right station." Jorik's mind raced. Tuning, frequency, the song, the warmth, the laughter. It all pointed to one idea. Humans hadn't vanished. They'd changed how they existed, shifting into a state beyond normal sight and sound, like radio waves passing through walls. But why leave the warden? Why the countdown? As if in answer, the lights dimmed again. This time, the shadows didn't just stretch, they moved. A figure appeared at the end of the hall, tall and thin, wearing a simple gray coat. It didn't walk. It simply was there, then gone. Kale raised his rifle. Don't. Jorik lowered his hand. It's not attacking. It's showing us, Mira's voice trembled. What if it's testing us? Seeing if we react with fear or curiosity? They waited. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then from the music box in the main chamber, a single note played, clear and pure. Jorik walked to it. Slowly, he opened the lid. Inside, no mechanism, just a small crystal that pulsed with soft light. As he watched, the crystal projected a tiny image into the air. Earth, blue and green, spinning gently. Then it changed, showing the same planet but overlaid with shimmering threads of light connecting every person, every thought, every song. The human mind, Jorik whispered. All linked, all singing together. The image faded. The crystal went dark. That's when the real trouble started. Back on Viridia Prime, Counselor Vrel had grown tired of waiting. He convinced the Conquered to send a Cathari battlecruiser, the Iron Maw, into the Sol system, the birthplace of humanity. If humans are hiding, he argued, we'll flush them out. The ship entered Earth's orbit with full shields and weapons hot. Sensors found nothing. Cities stood empty. Oceans rolled quietly. The crew beamed down to the old capital, London. They found books on park benches, bicycles leaning against lampposts, a child's kite tangled in a tree. Then, without warning, time twisted. The crew aged, not slowly, instantly. One moment, soldiers in prime condition. The next, old men and women with white hair and shaking hands screaming about the silence between stars. Their ship's log showed only 3 minutes had passed, but their bodies told a different story. Decades had burned through them in seconds. When the Iron Maw limped back to conquered space, its crew babbled the same phrase. They're watching you now. The council was terrified. Vrel demanded total blockade of all former human zones. Nilo argued for retreat, for silence, for respect. But fear won. War drums began to beat. On Eos Prime, Jorik, Kale, and Mira felt the shift in the air. The warden's screen flashed a new message. Time shortens, choice comes. The countdown now read 12 days, 19 hours. They're going to attack, Mira said, reading the latest Concord bulletins on her slate. Vrel's calling it Operation Clean Sky. He thinks if he destroys human relics, he'll break their power. He'll break reality instead, Jorik said. The warden isn't guarding a place. It's guarding a door. And if they force it open, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Kale looked at the empty streets beyond the archive window. So what do we do? Hide? Run? No, Jorik said. We prepare. If the humans tuned themselves to a higher frequency, maybe we can learn to hear it too. Mira tapped the music box. This crystal. It showed connection. Maybe that's the key. Not technology. Not weapons. Understanding. They spent the next hours in the archive, reading, listening, watching. They found recordings of human choirs, math equations shaped like flowers, star maps drawn with emotion instead of coordinates. It made no sense, and yet it felt true. As night fell on Eos Prime, Jorik stood alone in the plaza. He closed his eyes and hummed the lullaby softly. Not loud, just enough. For a second, the stars above seemed to pulse in time. Inside the archive, the warden's countdown ticked down to 12 days, 18 hours, and far away. In the heart of the conquered fleet, engines roared to life. Warships turned toward the silent worlds. The galaxy held its breath. And somewhere beyond sound, beyond sight, something ancient and kind waited to see if anyone would choose peace before it was too late. The day humans left the galaxy, and the Council's fear began part, for the warships gathered like storm clouds on the edge of human space. Over 50 vessels from the conquered fleet, their hulls bristling with weapons, their crews tense with orders. Counselor Vrel stood on the command deck of the flagship, Sovereign Will, his voice sharp with finality. Burn every archive. Melt every monument. If humans left ghosts, we'll salt the earth so nothing grows again. Back on Eos Prime, Jorik felt the shift in the air like a pressure in his chest. The warden's terminal now showed only 2 words beneath the countdown. 10 days, 03 hours too late. Mira stared at the screen, her silver skin dull with despair. They won't listen. They're coming to destroy everything. Kale slammed his fist against the wall. Then we stop them. Leak the truth. Let the whole galaxy see what's really happening. Jorik shook his head. The Council controls the newsnet. They'll call us liars, or worse, human puppets. Not if the proof sings, Mira said suddenly. She held up the crystal from the music box. This shows connection. What if we broadcast it? Not as data, but as feeling? Humans didn't just send messages. They sent meaning, Kale frowned. How? Every ship in the conquered fleet uses the same comms network, Mira explained. If we tap into the emergency broadcast channel, the one that overrides all others, and send the lullaby layered with the crystal's resonance, it might reach them. Not their ears. Their minds, Jorik understood. It's not a message. It's an experience they worked through the night. Mira rewired the archive's transmitter, linking it to the crystal and the last clean copy of the lullaby. Kale jury-rigged a power boost from the building's backup cells. Jorik wrote a short script, not words but intent. We are not your enemy. We are your warning. At dawn, they activated the broadcast. Across the fleet, screens flickered. Pilots froze. Commanders dropped their data pads. In the Sovereign Wills Bridge, Vrel shouted for a system purge, but it was too late. The song poured through every speaker, every implant, every neural link. Not loud, not violent. Just present, like a memory everyone had forgotten, and with it came the vision. Earth, whole and singing. Humans holding hands across time. Laughter echoing through starlight. And beneath it all a quiet truth. We did not leave. We changed, and you can too. On the bridge, Vrel clutched his head, his compound eyes twitching. For the first time he didn't see enemies. He saw children waving from a garden he'd never visited. But fear runs deep. Within minutes, the Council declared the broadcast a psychic attack. They labeled Jorik, Kale, and Mira traitors. Bounty hunters scrambled. Warships reactivated their weapons. They heard it, Mira whispered, watching the fleet's comms chatter turn frantic. But they're too scared to understand. Kale looked at Jorik. Now what? Jorik turned to the warden terminal. The countdown read, 7 days, 14 hours. Beneath it, new words appeared. The threshold awaits. One may cross. Mira gasped. It's offering a way through. To where? Kale asked. To where humans went, Jorik said. To see what they became. Silence filled the room. Outside, the wind rustled through empty streets. Kyle shook his head. I'm not leaving. My people are out there. If the fleet attacks, billions will die. I have to stay and fight. Not with guns, but with truth. Mira touched his arm. You can't stop them alone. I don't have to stop them, Kale said. I just have to make them pause long enough to remember they're not monsters. Jorik looked at his friends. He knew what he had to do. I'll go through. If humans became something greater, maybe they'll listen to one of us. Maybe they'll show me how to save everyone. Mira's eyes shimmered. What if you don't come back? Then you keep telling the story, Jorik said. Even if no one believes you. They spent the next day preparing. Kale loaded the rust finch with every data chip from the archive. Songs, poems, children's drawings, the lullaby, the crystal's resonance pattern. If I die, he said, let the truth survive. Mira gave Jorik a small device, a recorder. Bring back what you see, even if it breaks our minds. As night fell, they stood before the warden terminal. The countdown, 3 days, 09 hours. The screen glowed softly. Step forward. Do not fear. A door appeared in the far wall of the archive, where none had been before. It was made of light, not metal. It hummed with the same frequency as the lullaby. Kale gripped Jorik's shoulder. Don't forget us, I won't, Jorik said. I'll bring back hope. He walked to the door. The wooden bird in his pocket pulsed warm against his skin. Behind him, Kale and Mira watched, hearts pounding. Jorik stepped through. Light swallowed him. For a moment, there was nothing. No up, no down, no time. Then sound. Not noise, but harmony. Millions of voices singing the same note in endless variation. He saw galaxies folding like paper, stars breathing in and out, time flowing like rivers merging into one ocean. And then he saw them. Not human shapes, not bodies. Beings of pure resonance, shimmering patterns of thought and feeling woven from memory and music. They turned toward him not with eyes but with attention. One drifted closer. It held the shape of a woman, then a child, then a tree, then a song. It spoke without sound. You came. Jorik tried to speak but had no voice. So he thought, why did you leave us? We did not leave, the being replied. You are not ready to hear. Now you listen. Images flooded Jorik's mind. He saw the Concord fleet not as enemies but as frightened children clutching weapons because they didn't know how to hold hands. He saw Vrel's fear, Nilo's sorrow, Kyle's courage, Mira's hope. He saw the whole galaxy, beautiful, broken, and trying. We guard the balance, the being said. When a species grows too loud in fear, too blind in pride, we offer the threshold. Most refuse. They choose war. You chose song. Jorik understood. The countdown wasn't a bomb. It was a test. If the galaxy chose violence before the timer ended, the threshold would close forever. If even one being chose peace, the door stayed open. What happens now? He asked. Now you decide. Stay with us, or return and speak for us. Jorik thought of Kale, flying into a storm of warships with nothing but truth in his hands. He thought of Mira waiting in an empty archive, hoping. He thought of the wooden bird, still warm, still human. I return. The being pulsed with warmth. Then carry our voice, not as a weapon, as a lullaby. Light folded around Jorik again. He opened his eyes. He stood in the archive. The door of light was gone. The warden terminal showed 2 days, 23 hours. Kyle and Mira rushed to him. You're back. Jorik nodded. He felt different, calmer, clearer. The noise of the galaxy no longer hurt his mind. He could hear the fear, yes, but also the hope beneath it. What did you see? Mira asked. Jorik smiled. Everything. Outside, the sky darkened. Not from clouds, from ships. The Concord fleet had arrived. Engines roared over Eos Prime. Weapons charged. Kyle grabbed his coat. I have to go. Broadcast the truth one last time. Jorik stopped him. No, let me. He walked to the plaza, alone. Looked up at the warships hanging in the sky like angry gods, and he sang, not loud. Not proud. Just the lullaby, soft, clear, full of stars and sleep. Every ship in the fleet heard it. Not through speakers. Through their bones. Through their dreams on the sovereign will, Vrel froze. The song was the same one from the broadcast, but now he understood. It wasn't an attack. It was an invitation. The fleet's weapons powered down. One by one, the ships turned away. And in the archive, the warden's countdown stopped. It read, 2 days, 22 hours, and held. The threshold remained open. But far beyond the rim of known space, something older than stars stirred in its sleep, woken by the sound of a single human lullaby echoing through the dark. The day humans left the galaxy, and the Council's fear began Part 5. The silence after the song was deeper than any before. The warships hung in the sky above Eos Prime. Engines quiet, weapons dark. No orders came from the sovereign will. No threats. No movement. Just stillness, as if the whole fleet had taken a breath it didn't know it was holding. Jorik stood alone in the plaza, the last note of the lullaby fading into the wind. He felt no triumph, only a quiet certainty. The humans hadn't vanished. They had become something else, something that watched not to judge, but to protect. And now the galaxy had passed its first test. Kale and Mira ran to him, eyes wide. They stopped, Kale said, voice rough with disbelief. Just stopped. Mira looked up at the sky. What did you do? I didn't do anything, Jorik said. I just reminded them they're not alone. Back on Viridia Prime, chaos turned to confusion. Counselor Vrel sat in his chamber, staring at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. The song had not erased his fear, it had shown him what lay beneath it. Loneliness. Ambassador Nilo wept quietly in his water chair, not from sorrow but from relief. For the first time in centuries, the conquered felt small, not weak, just part of something much larger. But peace is fragile. Within hours, rumors spread. Some species claimed the humans had cast a spell. Others said Jorik was a prophet. A few whispered that the silence was a trap, and the real attack would come when they let their guard down. Fear, once planted, does not die easily. Jorik knew this. He also knew the threshold was still open, but not for long. The warden's terminal now read 1 day, 12 hours, and below it a new message: they awaken. Mira paled when she saw it. Who awakens? Jorik didn't answer. He remembered what the beings of light had shown him. Something ancient sleeping in the void between galaxies. Something that fed on fear, on war, on civilizations tearing themselves apart. The humans hadn't just left to evolve. They'd left to stand guard against it, and now the song had stirred it. Kale made a decision. I'm taking the Rust Finch to Viridia Prime. I'll tell the Council everything. Not as a warning, but as a choice. Mira nodded. I'll go with you. They'll listen to two voices more than one. Jorik watched them prepare. He could go with them, but he knew his place was here. The threshold needed a witness. As their ship lifted off, Jorik returned to the archive. The wooden bird in his pocket was warm again, warmer than ever, as if holding sunlight. He sat before the warden terminal and waited. The hours passed. The countdown dropped. 0 days, 06 hours. Then a signal, not from the Conquered, not from any known system. It came from deep space beyond the Rim Nebula, a pulse of pure static, cold and hungry. It carried no words, only a feeling. I am coming. Jorik understood. The ancient thing had heard the song, and it wanted to feed. He typed into the terminal. What must I do? The screen glowed. Speak for them, become the bridge, outside. The sky darkened, not from clouds, but from stars winking out one by one, as if something vast was passing between them and Eos Prime. On Viridia Prime, Kale and Mira stood before the full council. They played the lullaby. They showed the crystal's vision. They spoke of balance, not power. Vrel listened, silent. Nilo wept again. For the first time, the council did not debate. They simply sat, humbled. Then the static pulse hit. Every screen in the chamber filled with noise. Every implant screamed. Ships across the galaxy reported navigation failures, comms blackouts, crew members collapsing with nightmares they couldn't describe. It's not an attack, Kale shouted over the chaos. It's a presence, and it's drawn to fear. Vrel stood. Then we give it nothing to feed on. He ordered all weapons powered down, all shields lowered, all minds stilled. Across the conquered, species that had warred for generations sat in silence, holding their breath, choosing calm over panic. On Eos Prime, Jorik felt the shift. The static pulse slowed. The stars returned. The warden's terminal flashed. Fear denied. Hunger falters. But the thing was not gone. Only delayed. Jorik knew what came next. He walked to the center of the plaza, closed his eyes, and began to sing. Not the lullaby, but a new song. One the beings of light had given him. A song of unity, of many voices choosing peace. As he sang, light rose from the ground. Not fire, not energy. Pure resonance. It spread across Eos Prime, then leapt into space, touching every ship, every world, every mind that had chosen stillness. In that moment, the galaxy did not become human, but it became something like them, aware, connected, awake. The ancient thing in the void recoiled. It could not feed on harmony. It turned and fled back into the endless dark. The warden's countdown reached 0. Instead of vanishing, the numbers dissolved into stars. The threshold remained open, but not as an escape. As a promise, Jorik stopped singing. He felt tired but whole. The wooden bird in his pocket cooled to normal warmth. Days later, the Conquered sent no warships. They sent a single vessel, a peace envoy carrying Vrel, Nilo, and representatives from every member species. They landed in the same plaza, not with weapons, but with gifts. Seeds, songs, stories. Jorik met them alone. Vrel bowed his head. We were wrong. You were afraid, Jorik said. That's human too. They walked together into the archive. The warden terminal now showed only one word: welcome. From that day on, the former human worlds were not quarantined. They were tended. Gardens grew where cities once stood. Children from a dozen species learned the lullaby in school. The wooden bird sat in a glass case in the new Concord Museum, labeled simply, a message of trust. Kale became a teacher, flying between worlds, telling the story of the day humans left and what they left behind. Mira built a network of listening posts, not to detect threats but to hear beauty. Whale songs from ocean worlds, wind chimes on desert moons, laughter in crowded markets. And Jorik? He stayed on Eos Prime, not as a guardian but as a guide. Sometimes late at night he would stand in the plaza and hum the old lullaby, and if the stars flickered in response, no one spoke of it. They simply smiled and looked up. Far beyond the rim, the ancient thing slept again. Hungry, but patient. It would wait, because the galaxy was no longer easy prey. It had learned to sing. And somewhere in the quiet between stars, the humans, now more than human, watched with pride, their voices woven into every note of peace, their laughter echoing softly in the dark, not as ghosts, but as guardians. The fear of the council had ended, but the wonder had just begun.